Pulling the Trigger is sponsored by Easy Vape North Shore, the industry's leading direct retailer of the highest quality personal vaporizers, e-cigs, vapes, and Canadian-made e-juice. Located at 987 Marine Drive in North Vancouver, or you can check them out online at www.easyvapecanada.com. You can also donate to our Patreon account. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it easy for artists and creators to connect with their fans and get paid. That's at www.patreon.com/MarkHughesComic. And please like our Facebook page at facebook.com/PTT604. Welcome to Pulling the Trigger. I am Mark Hughes, and this is my podcast. Expertly and wonderfully produced, edited, polished, and posted by Taylor Morey. Pulling the Trigger is sponsored by our friends at Jackal Events. Jackal Events is a Vancouver-based event organization company specializing in political events and comedy shows. They have an event coming up on March 31st. Danny Polishuk live in Vancouver. And that will be at the Rickshaw Theatre, 254 East Hastings, Vancouver. Tickets available at www.picatic.com. That's Danny Polishuk live in Vancouver, March 31st. Hope to see you there. I'm actually opening for them. It is, what's the date today? January 16th. January 16th, I believe. So you will be hearing this episode January 18th. Had a comedy shocker a few days ago, the 15th one. It was fucking great. One of the best attended ones yet. Probably the second best attended one. The lineup was killer. No one did poorly. There was no bombs. Everyone did well. Robert Peng. He's a guy to look out for. Check him out on Facebook. Robert Peng, P-E-N-G, was the standout set of the night for sure. Asian guy making fun of Asian things in a super politically incorrect and delicious way. The next comedy shocker will be in April. We're just waiting for the specific date. It'll be soon. Comedy shocker news. For those of you in Alberta, specifically Edmonton, comedy shocker at the Comic Strip in West Edmonton Mall, April 4th. Stay tuned for the official event announcement. It's going to be a smoking good time, I hope. We'll see if Edmonton is really as tough as they say they are. I get told all the time, oh, in the prairies they never get offended. I've heard that shit before, but we'll see. So what's going on in my life other than that? Just comedy. I go to Toronto end of the month. Well, beginning of next month, I guess. I am looking at maybe relocating there temporarily. I've grown weary of Vancouver for a variety of reasons. I've lived here my whole life. And, well, I was born in Alberta, but I moved when I was 5, so I've lived in Vancouver for 33 years now, and I've never really lived anywhere else other than prison, so I'm just going to do something radical, change, even if it's just for a few months and I come back. I want to try living in another city, and I'm thinking Toronto. I like Toronto, I like the blue-collar vibe there, I like the bigger city vibe, I like the grit, I like the dirt. I have not experienced the cold yet, so that is the one thing that I do get a bit I'm not weary of, but I'm aware of that I haven't experienced how cold it can get there for long periods of time. So I shouldn't talk too tough. And I'm just recording a lot of these episodes. I'm trying to organize some different guests right now, different interesting ones, different unusual ones, different controversial ones. Got some emails out. This podcast is keeping me pretty busy, actually. It's actually the shot in the arm I needed for performing, because I can get... Performing and doing stand-up can become very discouraging sometimes, and because it's a marathon. It's long-term. There's no easy way around it. Everything takes a long time. Most comics have been doing it 10 years before they can even make close to a living off of it. So it sometimes just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. This podcast, I have immediate... the payoff I get from stand-up is something that can't be reproduced anywhere else. Those laughs are hard. That's a big thing for me. The connection I make with the audience is that I can't really get that anywhere else. But the podcast in some ways feels like I'm actually, I'm getting out there, getting my voice heard, and the feedback I get from it, especially some of the episodes. Don Wright's episode was quite impactful. I had a number of people message me saying they didn't even know an organization like that existed, BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse, and one guy I know of even went and saw them because he wanted to deal with some of his stuff. So that's nice to hear that I'm and I'm not an activist. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to educate people. I'm just trying to, get ahead myself. So I'll interview people who are interesting, unusual, or controversial. It helps me. It gets my name out there. But, people ask me why I do this, and it's some of the people, I'm a weirdo. I've lived on the outsides. I'm a misfit, all these kinds of things. And until I started doing comedy, I didn't realize how on the outside I actually was. Because so many people had never met anyone like me. And I don't think I'm particularly special. But there's so many people I know that most people will never meet or get to know on an intimate level. Even some of the guests that I've had have only ever been reported about. And I think I talked about this before. So to hear where they're actually coming from is just, that's why I do it. So you as listeners can get to know people you might not otherwise meet. As simple as that. I'm joined by Chuckles and Goku. I think Puppy's sleeping somewhere. They're scurrying around at my feet. Chuckles is not biting my feet today. I had to give her a treat to get her to go away. Oh, comedy news. Aziz Ansari got in trouble now. It seems like comics are getting in trouble all over the place. Apparently, the news said that a woman was interviewed by a magazine. You can Google this. And he was somewhat, according to the article, I guess I'm going to use the term aggressive. That might not be a direct quote, but he did, when she did describe that, or when she did say she didn't want to go any further, he did listen and he stopped. What she says in the article is that he was not aware or did not respect her nonverbal cues. And not everyone's socially calibrated, men and women. Sometimes women's nonverbal cues are hard to read, and sometimes men have a hard time reading them. We don't know how to communicate with each other as two different genders because we're socialized so much differently. I was talking with someone today. Men, generally speaking, communicate to solve a problem, whereas women generally communicate to express themselves. So body language is the majority of how humans communicate. So there's going to be a communication breakdown there. I don't know. I'm not going to wade into this too much. I think some of these stories are starting to be like, I don't want to say overblown, but I don't know. I guess it got people talking. It gets people aware of the issue of what does sexual communication look like. But I just hope that something like that doesn't take someone down, because most guys can probably have one or two stories, if they're being honest, of where they misfired on a date or something like that. Went in for a kiss that you thought would be received and wasn't received. Then you're embarrassed. And the majority of guys I know would be more humiliated than the woman was uncomfortable that they went in for it. And the majority of those guys too would, as soon as the woman said, "Hey, I'm not comfortable," would immediately stop, and we'd be thinking about it for 3 days. So yeah, I'll probably get in trouble for that comment, but that's okay. I'm not perfect. I've had women grab me when I was clearly not into it. I've woken up with women blowing me and stuff like that. So it's not a gender thing. Yeah, the majority of it happens men to women, but women can not be cognizant of consent and openness or receptivity either. I notice there's a contingent of women who think that men will always want to fuck them no matter what, and can get quite fucked off when you refuse them. Last time I was seriously called a faggot by someone who wasn't joking or making fun of me in just a balls breaking way was by a woman I turned down for sex. She said to me, "What are you, a faggot?" So, I mean, gender neutral, everyone can be an asshole. Hashtag equality. Speaking of which, that's an odd segue into our next guest. Sorry, Cass. Our next guest is someone I've known for years. She is a songwriter, singer, sex advocate, and a polyamorist. She was probably one of the first polyamorists I've ever met in my life. I'd never even heard of it, really. That's not true. I thought it was like hippie communes and Mormons and stuff like that. But Cass is someone who I see practice polyamory in a more calm and integrous way than most other people I've ever met. It's like she actually does it, and it's not her whole identity either. You can talk to her for hours and her not even bring it up. And it wasn't actually, I didn't know she was in an open relationship until I'd known her for a few years. So it's just a facet of her life, just like drinking coffee in the morning, if she does drink coffee. I don't want to make assumptions here. So why don't we meet Cass King, and she can illuminate you into a lot more stuff that I've been talking about in a lot more balanced way than I can, because she's more calm and poised than I will ever be. Cass King. So you had a song stuck in your head?
Oh my God, I don't even know. It's like, here I am, da da da, da 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 da. I don't even know what that song is. I think it might be Journey.
That beats me. You're already showing up on my own show with your singing abilities. Okay, that's it. It's over. I'm getting out of here.
The problem is, until I actually hear that song or install another song in my head, it's going to be there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. The trick is to sing like the theme to Gilligan's Island or something like that. That is
something
just,
inane.
Yeah, so dumb that.
As a singer, is that something? Do you have like a brain that absorbs songs by accident?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, so it's like it's like just something imprinted in your mind where you need to have one rolling around in your head at all times.
I almost always do. You know, my mom was just here, and she was marveling that my partner John and I don't have music on in our homes when we're musicians, and we both are trying to explain to her that if it's on, we are paying attention to it.
Right.
She's a biker, and so John was saying it's like if somebody had a dozen new Harleys parked in the living room.
Right.
Would you be able to pay attention?
Right.
And that's what we're like with music.
Right. Huh. Well, today on Pulling the Trigger, we are joined by my friend Cass King. I've known Cass for a number of years. We attend a mutual support group together, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And she's one of the more interesting people I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh, hey.
Not blowing smoke up your ass.
That's saying something.
No, you've done a lot of neat things. But I'm going to let you tell all the stuff that you do. And so, what do you do?
Oh, my God.
Besides get songs stuck in your head that you can't remember the title to.
All right. I'm a writer-performer. I've performed for years with a duo act called The Wet Spots. Before that, I wrote a sex column in Terminal City called Organ Grinder. Before that, I was a slam poet. And before that, I was a go-go dancer and fetish model.
So... Okay.
See what I mean? Just a life, you know.
Yeah. So, just like Mom used to do, right?
So my day job has been, for the last 16 years, has been selling, being a buyer, actually, for a great sex toy store in town called Women's Wear.
When you're a buyer, but not so you buy it, but you don't sell it?
I buy it, and somebody else sells it.
Gotcha.
I figure out what we buy, how many.
You're entrusted with getting the product for them. They say, okay, get us good stuff.
Yeah, retail inventory management is the key to retail. You have to just only buy the stuff that you're selling. So a bit of a math nerd like thing and a bit of a sex toy geek thing combined.
So you're a creative person and you're good at math?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Not like heavy math, but, like commerce math.
Wow.
Yeah, I really like math. Math is very reliable. Math is kind of always right.
Well, yeah, it's got a right or wrong answer every time. And if you're not getting the right answer, it's because there's something wrong with the equation.
That's right.
It's safe.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty safe.
Consistent. Yeah. So you're a performer, mainly music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now.
What other kinds? So you've been a go-go dancer, and you've done acting, too?
A little bit. We wrote a musical called Shine, a burlesque musical, and I was in that, and continue to be in it in its different iterations. But I don't really act.
No. I hate acting. I can't stand it. I get asked to do it all the time, and the takes. I don't like the takes. So they're like, "Oh no, that was great. Can we do it again?" I'm like, "No, we got to Like, no, we need to do it. And I'm like, nah, I don't. That's why I'm a comedian. I get the instant hit from it, right? It's either you win or lose on the spot. They either laugh or they don't. Yeah. There's no retakes. And I like being on the edge like that.
Yeah, well, it's like having a conversation with your audience. It's right there. It doesn't get mediated through any kind of filters. You're just right there, and they love it or they don't. And that's the thing about live theater and live comedy that's so compelling to me, is that when you're on a roll, you can really be, making up something new on the spot with the audience's help, and it takes you somewhere you never knew you would go.
Absolutely. The feeling of being in a live performance when it's going well is, I've never been able to duplicate it personally. And when it's going poorly, there's no other experience like that either.
Yeah. No, there's really not.
I mean, you're not liking it in the moment, but it's hard to describe to someone who's never even had that experience, right?
Yeah. No, I'm like this delicate flower, and I really, really hate bombing. I'm not, like everybody says, oh yeah, you grow a thick skin. I don't know. I never did. It hurts every time, but you got to do it. It's like skateboarding, and expecting not to fall off,
Exactly.
It just happens.
So how long, okay, I've heard a number of interesting things that you do and that you're into. We'll break them down into categories. So how long have you been a performer or creative or artistically inclined for? When did you know you were?
When I was 6, my mom took me on a cruise and lost me one day. And when she found me, I was on stage in my nightgown singing songs and telling jokes, and
an audience?
Yeah, there was a bunch of people there, and just a cruise ship entertainer or whatever had called me up, and I don't know what I was doing, but when she found me, I was on stage.
And do you remember the feeling?
Yeah. I mean, I always entertained. Like as a kid, I entertained because it was a thing that I could do to make my mom feel better. And to this day, she'll call and we'll just laugh and laugh and laugh, even at the things that are really brutal and hard. We laugh. That's what we do in our family. And to make her laugh was to brighten up something in her day. And she was, for a number of years, was a single working mother. And she worked really, really hard. And I was her companion, and it was my job to make her laugh. I thought, so it's instilled in me. It's also my way of telling my truth. Like as a woman, I'm socialized to be compliant, and sometimes my way of pushing back against that is to joke, or basically what I think of as telling the truth, and people laugh, and that's what the great comedy is, right? It's just telling the truth that people recognize.
Sometimes the laughter is a reaction to breaking the social contract.
Yeah.
Actually, because we all know it, but you're not supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, oh, I'm glad someone said it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of grew up in a family like that. I mean, my mom always sort of acted like faux outraged if one of us said something outrageous or ridiculous or something you shouldn't say in front of your parents. But my family are so accepting. If you have love in your heart, if you're like a kind person in my family, you can say anything.
So would you say it sounds like the soil of your family of origin was fertile to what a fucking stupid metaphor. Anyway, whatever, to make you who you are as a creative type person and a performer.
Yeah, I think so. I think I didn't have the same social oppression, that a lot of people go through. My folks were very if you're not hurting anybody, do what you want.
Hippies before there was such a thing as hippies, kind of?
Bikers.
Okay.
Bikers. Yeah. And, it's basically if you're not fucking with me, I mostly won't fuck with you. And if you are fucking with me,
almost, right?
I will give you a warning before I fuck with you, and then I will fuck with you.
Right. Nice.
I always kind of respected that. They weren't 1%ers, but, they were bikers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that in BC here?
No, in Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when would so that was at 6 that you discovered that you liked it. When did you start seriously pursuing performing?
Well, I went to Ryerson, and I actually started in the fashion department. I spent like 3 days there and was like, "Get me out of here! I can't deal with the other students." And so I fled to the theater department and just begged them to let me in. And they did, and I got into the tech program at Ryerson. That was in 1989. And then the next year, I auditioned again for a second time for the acting program and got into the acting program and flamed out in 6 months.
Okay.
But it was a serious attempt. By that time, I was nightclubbing pretty hard, and I was making a personality for myself on the club scene, and was starting to get these gigs like modeling in fashion shows and then organizing fashion shows.
So that's going on at the same. So the modeling and that sort of part of your life is going on simultaneously with the pursuit of theater.
Yeah, with the university, and I just decided that the reprobates in the leather and latex were more interesting than the Shakespeare people, and I just left to pursue it. In retrospect, I wish I had stayed in the tech program, because theater technicians can do anything. They are some seriously able people, and I learned a lot in my life from that 1 year, the foundation year in tech.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only done a bit of theater with Fringe. I haven't done much theater, and my theater, I'm just storytelling, which is autobiographical. So I'm just, as I do more Fringes, I'm starting to learn more about theater people. Not my favorite bunch, gonna be honest. They're a bit too cheery. They're like Christian camp kids or something like that. They like to hug a lot too.
They have to get along, Mark.
Yeah.
They have to get along. It's not like comics.
I guess so.
Right? The thing that struck me about theater was that I actually didn't really want to perform other people's writing. I didn't want to take direction. I just kind of wanted to do it my own way. And I think when we're talking about people that do theater, they really have to like work together and observe a structure and a hierarchical structure that that works for them. And so and also they're actors, right? So they're really good at putting on cheery faces, and because they have to, because that's what they have to do to get jobs. I don't know.
Hey man.
If you can do it.
Yeah, I'm not a team player. That's one of the reasons I resonate with stand-up is because I'm my own writer and all that kind of stuff. And I can go to the show and wait to go up, and it isn't held against me if I don't interact with anyone. Mm-hmm. People more or less, like most comics are a bit more, so most stand-up comedians aren't very good at group things anyway. We're kind of loners. But I'm even more a loner for stand-ups, right? I just come in. I'm polite and civil to everyone, but I don't necessarily want to hang out. I just want to I do a lot of stuff solo, but that's not like, what's wrong with this guy? No one really cares, right? So it really works for me.
Are you an introvert?
Yes. Oddly enough, I never thought I was, but yeah, no, I am.
Did you think you were an introvert before you got sober?
I didn't know. Okay, before I got sober, I wouldn't have even known what that meant.
Right.
When I first got sober, everything was so new, I wanted to try everything.
Right.
So I'm like, people, because I'd been locked up and stuff, right? Then as I got my experience fill, I was like, nah, I kind of prefer my own company, or one-to-one. I like one-to-one. I don't really like group things.
Yeah, that's me too.
Yeah.
If I can deep dive with you, I can definitely hang.
Small talk, I don't like. Yeah. I don't like it. If I know you, I can do small talk, because then it's substantial what we're talking about. Because if I'm saying, how was your day at work? It's because I have there's a rapport with you that I already have, and I care about you. So I'm actually interested in how your day was at work. Yeah. If you're someone I don't know, I don't give a shit how your day at work was. I want to know what your personality style's like.
Yeah. There's filters you have to get through,
and I'm not good at that stuff. The social skills stuff, the social calibration and all that kind of stuff. You're good at it though.
I'm good at it. Yeah, I am good at it, but it costs me. I realized actually in sobriety how much alone time I really need. and that it's actually okay to need that and get that for myself.
To recharge.
What do I do when I'm alone? Unless I'm in a phase where I'm experiencing my clinical depression, which happens. What I do when I'm alone is to create. I make stuff. And I need these huge swaths of alone time in order to do that. In fact, when John and I have nights that we have planned to be together, we'll often be in our respective studios making stuff, not even necessarily together. And that's our way of respecting each other's time and weirdly being together.
I get it.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't, but I totally get that. And you're not, there's probably no anxiety there about like, oh, I've got to entertain you.
No.
Or check in on them and make sure they know I'm attuned and all that.
Yeah, no. It's just, I mean, we have like, in poly people call new relationship energy when you get obsessed with your new sweetheart, and we have
almost as good as heroin, that stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's just off the wall.
Not as long though, oddly. Anyway.
And we have what we call old relationship energy. We've been together for, I don't even know now, more than 15 years.
Well, perfect segue into one of the other things that I find fascinating and admirable about you is you're in an open, polyamorous, ethically non-monogamous relationship. What term do you prefer?
I use polyamorous just because it's the short form for that most people understand. But we were that before that was a word. And
that's what I was telling someone today. I said I'm going to interview someone later on. They said, "Oh, what are they all about?" And I'm like, performer, and it says, "Oh, polyamorous," and I said, she was polyamorous before polyamory was cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I found that out, like, I was always trying to, like, in the majority of my relationships, I was trying to create that openness, not particularly because I'm so promiscuous, but because I believe that people should do what they want to do, and it doesn't hurt my feelings if my boyfriend who's on tour in Europe meets a hot Irish girl and wants to sleep with her. I'm like, high five, buddy. Let's go.
You're happy for him.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's, poly people call that compersion.
Right.
We have a word for everything. But I'm not really a poly geek. Like, I don't really go to like poly circles and stuff like that. I just have my little life.
And that's the other thing I admire most about you, because so many poly people I know, it seems like it's their identity. It's like the jokes people make about vegans or people who are into CrossFit. Like, you can't walk into the room without them talking about it, right? Yeah. You don't really talk about it. It's more like, so I'm dating this girl or this guy, and then I'm going home to my husband. And it's like, and if you didn't know, you'd be like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
It's not a thing. It's just part of you.
Like, to each their own. Some people really love picking apart relationship dynamics and like really kind of deep diving into processing, and like, I'm really good with like not leaving shit on the ground. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say I'm really good. I really believe in it, and I strive to be as good as I can about bringing things up when they affect me. Mm-hmm. That is a very long way of saying I'm probably bad at this, but I really try my best. Yeah,
it's an ideal you're striving toward at all times.
But like, I'm not a person that really needs to sort of sit on the couch and eye gaze for hours and like really pick things apart heavily. I don't know why, but that's just me. But other people do, and that's what they like. And so, all power to them. I don't
My
care,
experience
really.
Dipping into the poly world, because I'm a non-monogamous guy, right? Mm-hmm. I do it. I learned a term. You gave me a term that I didn't know existed, and I am solo poly.
Solo poly, yeah.
A lot of polyamorous people don't like solo poly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem, especially as a male. They think we're just playing the field, and we're just.
That's so weird coming from poly people. Like, why would you judge that?
This episode's about you. I could have a whole episode about some of the stuff, but some of the reasons I've had issues because I don't want to talk about things endlessly. Sometimes I don't want to navel gaze about. I just we'll have the discussion. Here's the way I do it. Is that okay with you? Here's kind of, and I'm pretty loosey goosey. I'm like, I just don't want to hear graphic details about the people you're fucking. Other than that, I don't really give a shit. Like, go do what you do. And sometimes, and I'm not moving in with you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not changing the Facebook relationship status.
Yeah. You don't get that pair bonding impulse.
No, I need my space too much.
Yeah. I get the pair bonding impulse. Like, I am a nester. I really am. I like those long-term pair bonded relationships.
Fuck me. If someone spends more than 2 nights in a row at my place, I'm like, you got anything you gotta do? Or, and it's not because I don't care about them. It's just, that's just my style. And I'll admit it, that's a hard one for, I'd say 90% of people to dig.
Yeah,
that's fine. It's annoying. Sometimes it took me a few years to come to terms with, we all have our things that are like, this part of me is just the way I am, and unfortunately it doesn't totally fit with the majority of people, but it's not a character flaw.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing wrong with you, but it's a card, it's one of the cards you were dealt, and you just gotta learn to play it the best you can. That's one of mine, is when it comes to romantic or sexual relationships, the pool that is the most compatible with me is quite small. That's all. Whatever. It doesn't mean I miss out on 100%. It doesn't mean I'm forever alone. It's just a reality I've got to be aware of. What have you found are the biggest... put that question aside, hopefully I remember it. How long have you been practicing polyamory?
I would say my first explicitly open relationship was when I was 20. So that is 26 years. You smoothie. 26 years.
26 years. Okay.
For better or worse, like for doing it well and doing it poorly. Doing it in full expression, like in full honesty, and doing it in ways that I was trying to control the outcomes by limiting information with certain people. Not in a way that I would call cheating, but just not so great. Not how I like to run my relationships now. Mm.
Yeah, it's quite a learning curve when you do it. It's one thing I've known lots of people who embark on the poly journey and quit because they're like, it's not that I don't want to do this. It's just it's too much stuff they have to. There's too many steps or too many new things that are so outside the norm that they're like, I'll have this impulse. I'll deal with it somehow, but I think I'll just be monogamous.
It's a pain in the ass to be poly.
Yeah.
You have to be so brave. Like, you have to be willing to put your truth on the line, and that might mean that somebody might walk away from you. And we're just not used to that in monogamous culture. Like, in monogamous culture, it's like you do everything you fucking can to hang on to your partner tooth and nail, even if it's only like 80% working for you. You're like, I can put up with 20% of bullshit. Like, I can put up with 20% of broken glass on my pillow, and I just don't, like, I don't want to live that way. And yet it's really what we're trained to do, men and women.
Oh yeah. It's definitely not a gender thing. It's, I find just through observations that, generally polyamorous women tend to have struggles that a lot of men don't, and men tend to have struggles that a lot of women don't. The issue, mine tend to be as a man is a lot of people will initially say no, like just right off the bat. No, I'm not even, and they'll even get offended that I'm suggesting it. Or talking about it. Whereas I notice with women who I've talked to is people will be initially okay with it. Men will be, if they're heterosexual, they'll be initially okay with it. Then give it some time. Now all of a sudden they're not okay with it. Would you say that's your experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I meet a lot more cis men that say they're into it. You go on that first like OkCupid date or Tinder date or whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally curious about it. I'm totally into it." And then like the next day they're like, or like the next week they're like, "Oh, I've actually decided that I want to pursue this relationship with this other woman." And it's like, well, what happened to being like curious about this? You're just not even willing to take that first step and negotiate with her that you're seeing multiple people. Like, you don't have the stones to be poly, dude.
No, and most people, I have a conversation with a friend of mine all the time, and I say, most people don't have the fortitude to live like this. And as it applies to me, I don't want to hijack this, but this is what I go on a lot of first dates. Mm-hmm. I get ghosted on a lot. Mm-hmm. I get light to heavy ultimatums put me on me a lot. I get the everything's okay, communicated clearly. Then 3 months later, all of a sudden it's a problem. I'm the temporary boyfriend a lot, because a lot of people these days with Tinder and things like that, casual non-monogamous relationships are kind of the norm until they find someone who they can be monogamous with, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm the middle guy. I'm the stopgap measure, which it sort of suits the way I do it. It just if I'm ever entering into something that's semi-serious, it's like every 3 months I'm getting broken up with. And that. Remember you said about bombing? Never totally getting rejected. I can handle it. It's no big deal. It doesn't keep me up at night most times, but it does wear thin sometimes. Right.
No kidding. I admire that. I desperately hate rejection, which is a terrible trait for an entertainer.
It makes sense though. You're facing and riding the wave of the thing you're most afraid of. Right? That's where some of that energy comes from. You get the charge and the fear and the adrenaline of doing it. Especially when it goes well. Then what, right? Then what? Yeah, it's I've been ghosted a lot too, and I've been, when I've had the impulse and the energy to date outside of the primary relationships that I have, there's a lot of people sort of testing the waters that just kind of don't want to go there, and I just, people out there who ghost people, just fucking say you're not into it. Like, come on, man, just say you're not into it. It's like, like you and I went on some dates, right? And then it was like, it was fun. And then it was like, hey, do you want this? Yeah, I'm not really into that. Well, okay, I don't want that. But what you're offering, and we're like, okay, cool, pal, see you later. And we see each other and it's fine. That to me, like, it just makes so much sense. It's like, if we can just trust each other to have, to be able to say no and to hear a no. It's like, oh, I don't want to tell her no because I don't want to hurt her feelings. It's like, well, you know what fucking hurts her feelings? No answered texts, or like going away and not having any closure. Well, and also if you're the one who got ghosted and you want to be like, hey, what's up? Then you end up being put in a position where you feel like a stalker or something like that. You're the creep. You're the creep. And sometimes in this culture, because it's become so normalized, that's almost how, in this narcissistic way, that's how people will end up coping with it. They will, in order to justify their behavior to themselves, they'll turn you into the ghosted, into the bad person if they follow up. How we do in this culture, or in this sort of new self-centered social media thing, where it's just like, and where you as an individual are great no matter what, and so if anyone doesn't, and you have agency and all this stuff, and if anyone doesn't like it, then it's their problem. So I'll be like, hey, what's going on? Texting. I'm making texting motions, audience. Hey, haven't heard from you in a week. I just wasn't really feeling it. Oh, well, you could have told me, hey, I think you're being really intense right now. It's like, whoa. I know. You think I'm being really intense by speaking the truth. Yeah, and it's not like it's not like in the text or the phone call I'm swearing and calling you names or anything like that. But these are the times we live in. We got to adapt, or else we'll be like dinosaurs, I guess. It is. Well, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. Actually, you know what? To be totally honest, I have to say that I've ghosted people too, but not anybody that I've actually met. Like, if I've met you, I will give you the courtesy of a yes or a no. I'm of the opinion, okay, as much as I don't like it when people ghost me, I do have to, even if I'm just playing a fucking trick with my head to make myself cope, it's easier to cope. You don't owe me anything. Yeah. Right or wrong, you don't owe me anything. Yeah. It'd be nice. It'd be ideal. Doesn't mean it's not going to hurt my feelings, but you don't owe me anything. But that's kind of the foundation of poly, poly love in the first place, right? Like, the idea that's underneath monogamy is that we do own each other to some extent. Well, apparently it started out as a contract. If you believe certain theories about it, right? So, I don't think that monogamy is it. If monogamy was really hardwired into us as animals, women wouldn't be loud when they have sex, and they wouldn't be capable of having multiple orgasms. and men wouldn't be horny all the time, always looking at everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
whether we want to or not, even when we're trying really hard to be monogamous.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got sexually active, I was like, no, I'm going to be a good dude. I'm going to be a stand-up guy. And it would pain me to be lusting after women I'd see. And I used to think, what the fuck is wrong with me, right? There's nothing wrong with me.
No, there's nothing.
Testosterone, that's how it works. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing an interview. I wish I could say who it was, but hearing an interview, I think it was on Savage Lovecast, with a trans man who had realized when he started taking hormones.
The testosterone.
Yeah, testosterone. That he was sitting on the subway one day completely objectifying a woman. and this was a person that had been through women's studies and gender studies and was totally well versed in feminist theory, and found themselves doing this and realized that it was part of the effect of testosterone.
Testosterone, hell of a drug.
Yeah, I mean, I find that fascinating.
It's I'm getting a bit older, so my testosterone levels are dropping slightly here. Every few months I notice it's a bit less and less. Last year, if something happened and it went down to a fair amount, it was like I can see clearly. Like, I'm still horny as hell all the time, but it's like it's down 25%.
Yeah.
And I can actually make better decisions now as a result of that. It was almost like, wish I could just stay right there. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I find I have to pump iron to really keep my drive up.
Oh, okay.
Like, it really, really helps me if I'm not just exercising, not going for a little jog, but lifting heavy shit.
Because women produce testosterone too.
We do.
It's just not in the same levels, right? And it's harder to get it going.
I don't know the science of it.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But what I do know is that when I lift heavy shit, it drives up my sex drive.
Nice.
Yeah, which is good because it's pretty low.
Can you help me open this pickle jar?
For somebody that's such a sex advocate, and I don't know, have we mentioned my day job? Yeah, it was okay. So sex toys and
we'll get to that
sex advocacy. So for somebody that's so immersed in sexual well-being and destigmatizing, I'm low libido person. It just doesn't really matter that much to me. If it's it happens once a week, I'm good. And so I really that. I think that might be one of the reasons why poly is so important to me too, because I have partners that are high libido people, and I don't want to be holding that leash.
They can go paw at someone else's door.
Totally,
right?
And I just don't want to be holding them back from being expressed in the way that they want to be.
You know what? It's funny when you describe your experience and attitude towards poly, and this is one of the reasons I always get people I like who are interesting and have a certain energy to them. You sound so zen. No, I know people are people, and sometimes you're probably not that zen. Probably you're the exact opposite. No. But anytime you and I have had these discussions, it's the way you talk about how you don't want to hold your partner back. You want them to experience pleasure. You don't want you to be in the way of them doing that. And that I find really admirable. And that's something I as idealistic as this might sound, I wish more people had that attitude toward, not just this stuff, but people in general. People having that attitude towards people.
Yeah, I don't owe you anything. It's really important to me. Now, if you want to talk about ways that I am not super zen poly person, I will totally go there because it's
sure. What are your struggles? What are your struggles? Both just the stuff that sort of logistically comes up, living this lifestyle, and personally, just little quirks or idiosyncrasies or even neuroses.
Yeah. Well, the basic one, and the one that I think most people with more than one partner experience, is this fear of being a third wheel or somehow irrelevant to the other person's relationship, and of being left out, or a toenail is going to fall off one day, and that's just a fear. right? That fear does terrible shit in our minds. But there are days when I'm on the couch with a pint of ice cream, crying into my onesie.
I've seen pictures on Facebook.
That it really sucks, and, so it's not that doesn't happen. It's just that I don't think it's the end of the world. And I have people around me that can talk me down off the ledge too, right? Having people that model good, healthy coping mechanisms is so important. I'm also, I think some relationships we can handle really lightly. And some relationships just hook us for whatever reason. Whatever, that person just, I don't know, some Gabor Mate shit, like just triggers something intense in us, in our story, in our, what he calls a pain body. Like it's, some people just fucking turn that crank. And I've had a relationship like that and always felt like it was weird, Mark. I felt like in my mind I was holding it very lightly. Because it was always like, well, this is for as long as, it's going to last as long as it lasts. And, we're friends and this part of our relationship is something that we can enjoy and not be too serious about it. And then when it ended, I was devastated. I went into a major depression. I quit my job. I didn't answer the phone. I gained 20 pounds, Was
this fairly recently?
Yeah. So I don't want to talk about the person, but it's, sometimes we can fool ourselves into thinking that we are just A-okay, like right on poly people. And for whatever reason, that one relationship gets us.
It's funny because it sounds very reminiscent of something both of us can identify with. Having this sort of, no, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And then underneath.
Yeah.
And then when you're cut off from the supply, then you realize how much of an issue it really was. Right?
Actually, you're right. Like it does. Relationships do have addictive qualities, especially those ones. Yeah. Those ones that just fish hook you right in the gut.
I try my best these days. Not perfect, of course, and sometimes I'm like, no, I'm going to take a fucking risk. There's this feeling I get when I'm around that type of person. Immediately, a little part of my brain that isn't normally lit up lights up just in their presence.
What's it feel like?
Anxiety.
Like you want to please them.
Yeah. And they're going to leave me.
Yeah.
And but I'm also high too.
Yeah.
And that's
high on their attention, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, let's just say, 5 times out of 10, I go, let's just step out of this. Let's just bow out of this, right?
Yeah.
Then the other times I'm like, let's see where this goes.
Oh, it feels so good.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about NRE, right?
Oh,
NRE
yeah.
heroin.
That's the speedball of NRE. But I don't even think that's NRE. That's whatever that is, obsession. That thing, that trauma bond or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a trauma bond.
They light up whatever that attachment wound is. They remind you of your mother or your father or both or something, and it just...
And it's not that there's not good things that can come out of that relationship. Like, definitely.
And it doesn't even mean there's anything wrong with them.
No,
it doesn't mean it was abusive or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's just that on the aggregate, I feel like I learned a lot and had to learn some very real truths coming out of it that I wouldn't have learned any other way.
Right.
But it was. It was really painful. And the fact that it was really painful does not undermine the fact that it was also really beautiful. I just bring it up because I was so convinced that I had it under control. And, could go along with, I don't want to get into the details, but I was convinced that I had it under control and I really, really didn't.
Right. Good segue. So you're sober.
Yeah.
How long have you been sober for now?
11 years.
11. What's your date?
October 2nd, 2006.
Oh, I'm a little less than a month ahead of you.
Oh, wow.
September 14th, 2006.
I didn't realize we were so close.
Yeah. Did you take a cake?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to be careful of what we could talk about on that front. So, taking cakes for our listeners is in certain support groups we celebrate like a birthday when you hit an annual anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's sobriety like these days? it's your whole life, I get, but like
yeah, it's sort of the foundation of everything. It's in some ways you can almost go on autopilot, and that's what you got to be wary of. You can be. I just make a little checklist for myself in the morning of the things that I have to do to keep myself grounded in being in not using substances today. And a lot of that has to do with dealing with life, just accepting life, for what it is.
The Zen-like thing
Yeah.
again.
Or trying my best. It's like, oh, I can't do it right now. Okay, keep trying. This is awful. No, keep trying, So yeah, it's sobriety is like that. It's like, it's a piece that I do every morning. It's a piece that I have certain rituals around. It's a piece that comes to me when I really feel my worst, that it's always there. And the support of the other people that are like me is there for me. Even when I feel like I'm at my bottom. And that happens again and again. Being at your bottom, being at what you feel like is your lowest low, happens easily in sobriety too.
Absolutely, it can feel worse than it did when you were drinking or using drugs.
For sure,
because you got nothing to anesthetize.
For sure, it's raw, like rubbing raw nerves sometimes. So, but no matter what, somebody has seen it and done it and been that idiot that you were. So like it's really helpful.
I find now that I'm 11 years, it's been like this for a few years, but definitely these days, the imminent danger of a drink or a fix is not, very rarely does it even cross my mind, but I got to be careful of like emotional management and how I initiate, maintain, end, and maybe even amend relationships.
Yeah.
It's a relationship because we're social creatures. It's as much of a loner as I want to be. I have to maintain relationships with people, and I'm sexual being. So then there's those ones.
Yeah.
But I find sobriety is. They say addiction is often a disease of relationships.
Oh wow, right? That's a good one. I haven't heard that one.
And because if you think about it, that's mostly the earliest, the beginning of when we started to needing to mood alter was probably something to do when we were children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's not even to get into what causes addiction. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but so I find in sobriety it's something that the tools that we learn in the thing we do, that's where I need to apply it most, and emotional regulation and things like that too. Mm-hmm. And then you throw in the poly piece, and you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, and I think that the thing that it comes down to is radical honesty. And radical honesty with yourself. And I know that there's a whole branch of thought called radical honesty. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a commitment to honesty with yourself and with other people. Even if that honesty is like, you gotta call your partner when they're at their other partners and be a blubbery, ugly, crying, snotty mess just for a second, just because you need to be heard. Even when you like so desperately want to be that like super cool poly, like got it all together person, and you're like, I need somebody to hold my head and tell me that I'm special. Fucking tell me that I'm special right now. And like to be that needy, and
to be allowed to be.
Yeah, like to be that honest about being that needy. Like needy, whatever. Having a need.
Vulnerable, really.
Yeah.
It's just an extreme state of vulnerable. And one of the reasons being having been there myself, right? You do it more sexily than I do with the blubbering. But one of the reasons it feels so scary to be that vulnerable, I've figured out, is because I'm not actually in danger. It's a completely psychological fear of being. It's the primal wound of abandonment.
Yeah.
Right? So and it's like. And it feels so scary because you're fighting with your rational. If a guy had a knife to your throat and you need to call your partner, he's with his girlfriend, you wouldn't think twice about it, right? Yeah. That you do, though, because you're not actually, your rational mind's going, you're not in danger, you don't need to do this, this is going to be stupid. right?
Yeah, so you fight with yourself.
Yeah.
And the fight is like, you should be cooler than this. You should be able to handle this. You should be, whatever.
Remember what they taught in Poly 101?
Yeah. Thank God I've never taken Poly 101.
You don't know if I read a book once. Ethical Slut.
Yeah, the Ethical Slut is great. I also have to shout out to two of my mentors and friends.
Do it.
One is Marcia Bakczynski. She has a site called askingforwhatyouwant.com. And she's just a ninja. She's amazing. And the other is Reid Mihalko, and his is Reid About Sex, REID, aboutsex.com. And Reid is a total character. He's like a super power slut, and totally unabashed about it, and wants you to be totally fulfilled that way, if that's your jam
yeah.
too,
Because that's the other thing that a lot of people don't know about poly philosophy, theory, whatever you want to call it, is people who are poly tend to be, ideally, if you don't want to have sex, if you want to be asexual, that's cool too. It's all about doing what you want to do in an ethical or safe kind of a way where you're not fucking other people over unless it's fun.
Yeah.
Right? Because you would describe yourself as sex positive?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How have you found that being in that little thing we do? Because that tends to be a bit archaic sometimes.
Well, I think that people, there's some environments where it's okay to spill your guts about everything except sex. It's, and that's kind of understandable because people have such varying degrees of comfort with it and varying, experiences with it. And oh my God, so many people, I mean, maybe just particularly in our circles, but also, fucking people you see on the SkyTrain have been abused. Have been horribly, terribly abused. Fuck. Most people, I would almost say. Or maybe it's just the circle of people that I hang out with, but it's so common. And, so bringing up things that are, sexual, that are happening for me right now, is not, it's a conversation that I would want to have consent for.
Before you even have the conversation.
Yeah, which is really funny because, in our circles, people share about shitting their pants and,
stealing from their kids.
All kinds of horrible stuff, right?
Robbing people.
But imagine, talking about masturbating on Thanksgiving in the bathroom, it's not going to happen. And I think that's sort of, we silo sex in our society. We silo it off. It's it's okay under these circumstances, and it's okay. Even Canadians that are, are pretty chilled out about it. We still kind of think it's rude to talk about it in just normal everyday conversation. And having worked at Women's Wear for so long, I really am adept at having these conversations without necessarily using triggering language. And even so, it makes people so uncomfortable. And really what I want to do is just keep doing it. Just keep having these conversations because we need to talk about this stuff. If we don't talk about it, then we don't get to have real conversations about consent and about, Me Too and about how, consent is abused. And more importantly, about how do we heal and move forward from it. We're stuck in the maelstrom right now. There is an awful lot of truth being set free, and we got to deal with it. And I believe in the children. I do. I think that these kids have, a lot of kids have grown up, or young adults have grown up knowing that they don't have to hug Aunt Mary if they don't want to. And that to me is fundamental. Teaching kids their fundamental right to not be handled in any way that they don't want to be. That, I think it's really groundbreaking. And I have hope that generationally it will change.
I'm pretty slutty myself. I'll talk about anything. One thing I don't like about social media is sex being shoved in my face.
Oh, yeah.
Oddly enough. And it's not about, for example, social media, Instagram. There's a lot of nudity or partial nudity.
Uh-huh.
I don't like it being shoved in my face.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you don't follow anybody that
I do.
posts stuff like that?
But I'm a whore. Like, whatever, right? But
you like it, but you don't like it.
I don't, I'm not like dirty harlot. I'm not like that, but it always feels a bit like, if I want to see your naked form or semi-naked form, I'd like it to be just for me. And I want it to be, not necessarily we had to have a big conversation about it, but it was like a text from you would be nice. But like, just scrolling through the newsfeed, boom, boobs.
Yeah.
And I like boobs, don't get me wrong, boobs
Yeah.
are great. But it's just a funny thing is it's there's a part of me that is a bit conservative that way. That's like,
I like dicks, but I don't like getting them in my inbox unbidden.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I'm working on a spreadsheet right now.
Yeah.
Why I gotta contemplate your dick?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, it's not that I'm negative. It's a consent thing. But social media is a little like, it's almost like if you sign on to certain channels, then you're consenting to certain kinds of.
And that's why you'll never hear me really. I'll make jokes about certain things, but you'll never hear me protesting it or anything. It's a thing about myself that I know is just the way it is, and if I'm gonna use social media, that's part of the price I pay to use it.
I have a Tumblr avatar.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, so it's like I kind of put all that stuff in one place if I can, because it's almost like I know that. Look, I'm very visual. They say that women are not. I am, and many women are like me. But I know that if I'm seeing stuff like that all the time, then I have to deal with being in a state of semi-arousal while I'm trying to do work on my spreadsheet, you know? It's like, I don't want to see that mixed in. So I actually have different kind of avatars so that I can kind of keep it in one place. And that works pretty well. Yeah. But, you know, it was funny working at the sex toy store, you know, and being a buyer in that industry. It was like, seeing all of these, it's like being a carpenter and like buying and selling saws all day. You're like, oh, I really want to use that saw. Check out that miter box. Ah.
What do you think of the Hitachi magic wand?
I think if I could have a store, I think that it would be like one of those fucked up yuppie stores in Yaletown that like don't have anything in it. For me, it would be like just the magic wand on a fucking pedestal. That's what I think. Good, eh? For me.
You ever met anyone who doesn't like it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Lots of people.
That's the funny thing. I hear people talk about it all over the place, especially in comedy. Comedy's like a barometer of what's going on in society. So a lot of female comics and even male comics will mention it. And the consensus seems to be it's the greatest invention for women ever, and all women like it. So it's interesting to hear you say that. Oh, yeah. You want to hear my theory on it? Absolutely.
It's a super powerful toy. Number one, it's one of those like plug in the wall. It's got 2 speeds, like, you know, super heavy and break cement. Like those are the 2 speeds. It's like really, really, really powerful. So what we're learning is that the clitoris is not simply external, and it actually is a kind of a Y shape. It's almost like a wishbone. If you can imagine a wishbone that is L-shaped. So it has these 2 legs, these crura that go around the vaginal walls. And they're full of nerve endings. This is why some people can have G-spot orgasms and some people can't. And some people really love, clitoral play. And some people are just like, meh, get on with it. You know, like it depends on where our nerve endings are. The magic wand is such a rumbly, low vibration, strong toy that I think it activates through your body. Like I think it just lights up everything that's there to light up. Some people really don't like that. Like imagine if you had all of those nerve endings concentrated in one place. Like that would be not pleasant to have, to have that on your body.
I am funny with prostate play.
Yeah.
I like it a little bit, but sometimes it's a bit too much.
Yeah, and that's really common. You know, it's really common.
Makes me feel like I gotta pee too.
Yeah.
It's very close to the bladder. So,
yeah. Well, and that's what people that squirt or have G-spot orgasms also feel that way. So many times it's like, well, you know, my wife really wants to do this, but every time she gets there, she's like, well, she has to pee. And so she runs off to the bathroom, but she doesn't have to pee. Did you know that women get erections?
Yeah. Yeah, the clit gets hard, right?
Yeah, but they also get internal erections.
Oh.
There's all kinds of erectile tissue inside the vaginal walls. And so if you've ever put your fingers in there and you feel it, it's like kind of like corduroy, like ridgy. That's erectile tissue.
Oh, wow. Neat. So
you
do get lady boners.
Yeah, we totally get lady boners. They're real.
Wow.
They're a real thing.
Wow. Fascinating. How many partners do you have right now?
2.
Genders?
John is cis male.
Cis male.
And Samantha is cis female.
Cis female. So you're bisexual, pansexual?
You know what? I kind of kick back against the term pansexual because it just sounds so fucking gorby. But, I'm sorry to pansexual. I'm sorry.
This is my podcast.
I'm really sorry if it's your term and it works for you. But the fact is that I'm really attracted to people that are what we might think of as between genders as well. Or I prefer the term non-binary because it just takes the idea that there's a gender binary right out of it. So I'm attracted to people.
So it doesn't matter about the body part. It's just could be Jeff one day and it could be Jennifer another day, kind of thing.
I had my relationship with Samantha is the first full-on relationship I've had with a woman. So by and large, I've had relationships with cis men. So I wouldn't necessarily say it could be a 50-50 either or thing. It's just that Samantha's so amazing.
So it's more along the lines of every once in a while. I mean, it sounds like very, very once in a while you meet a woman that turns your crank.
Yeah, it was always I would have, play dates with friends and, I was
threesomes and things like that.
Occasionally. But, it was, and, I find women attractive. If I'm, looking at visual stuff, I look as more women than men, really. That's typical of most women. So it's, I don't know that I would necessarily say it's 50-50, but it's definitely dependent on the personality.
Right. I have a dumb little joke I say sometimes. I'm very much like a modern millennial girl. I like having sex with women, but I don't want to date them.
Yeah,
they're a pain in the ass after the outside of the bed.
No, actually, I love being in a relationship with a woman. It's really different.
Because this is your first one, right? What's different?
Oh my god.
Let's say the positive qualities that are different and the negative.
Oh no, you're gonna bust me.
Yeah.
You're gonna bust me.
Yeah.
Sorry, sweetie.
Yeah.
No. The positive qualities are she's so attuned to what I'm feeling. She knows from the slightest change in my demeanor that something is going on. And that she wants to know what it is. This is terrible to say, but she helps. She helps in a way that sometimes my male partners haven't. Right? She'll get up and take care of her dishes and do the dishes for the rest of the family. She is a caregiver. In a way, and it's subtle. It's really subtle. I'm obviously saying not all men, but and John's a real caregiver too. So obviously that's something that I like.
But there are certain things that female women just tend to be better at or more natural at.
More socialized to do.
Yeah, and men
more socialized to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and emotional labor, it's just a thing that women are. It's women are so good at that, and because we've been allowed to cry, right? It's oh, don't get me started on that. But anyway,
yeah, that's a different episode.
Totally different subject. But she's really sensitive, and I guess the flip side to that would be that she goes through the same kind of mood swings that I do. You know, like in dating a woman, I realized that the menstrual cycle is a real fucking thing.
It does.
It's
sync
a real
up.
thing. No, it doesn't sync up.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, it's a pain in the ass having a period in the family every 2 weeks. But still.
but dealing with someone going through it.
Yeah, dealing with the tenderness that we get. You know, like even if it's not. Like, even if I don't want to go all the way and say, like, oh, PMS makes you crazy. But it's like, you're dealing with a lot of fucking pain. You know, you're dealing with pain. It's excruciating. You feel like you want to vomit. You, like, out for the count, but you still have to show up for work. And it makes you crabby. It makes you sensitive. Well, they're different. Yeah, they're different. And it's like, it puts you into a different mode. You know, and maybe that's a mode that needs a little more caregiving. You know, maybe it needs a little more patience. And, you know, men are so stoic. Like, definitely men go through those periods too. I know they do. But men have been socialized to be so stoic, you know, and men don't have periods.
Apparently, we have a version of a period. Apparently, there's some testosterone thing that happens to us monthly as well. I'd have to Google it. I can't remember what it was, but apparently men can go, there's a male period, and it has to do with dropping testosterone levels.
Does it make you bleed through to your car seat?
No,
it's
not even
cry?
close. It's not even close to that. But it does. It causes mood shifts and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the male PMS is basically.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was really interesting. It was like, whoa, is this what I'm like? And sure it is. You know, sure it is. So that was fascinating. Yeah.
How do you like them apples? How does it feel? No.
I took a little getting used to.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's you know what's interesting? I've never, with the exception of one person, I've never dated a woman whose menstrual stuff is that noticeable.
Oh yeah.
Like with the mood or changes in sensitivity or anything like that. It's always. I dated one girl when I first got out of prison who would go into very bad depressions when she'd have for 4 days. Yeah. As soon as she started bleeding. Mm-hmm. Snapped out. It was free. It was like literal. Sometimes it'd be like we'd be sitting there, she'd start menstruating, and the light would come back on, just like that. But other than that, no woman have ever. I've had women who I've dated women who had cramps and stuff like that, but they're still. That's. I guess I've been privileged. It's weird though because I've never. When people tell me about women get when they're on their period, I'm like, no, I don't really. No, I've never really. Maybe I just have some good actors or something like that. Yeah, maybe. Or you could I guess not everyone gets affected intensely by it either, right? No, it's not. Not everybody does. Not everybody does. No, just sometimes. And before I started taking antidepressants, it was hellish. Right. It was hellish. And, I tried everything. I thought it was my thyroid. I took all kinds of vitamins and stuff. And, eventually, somebody just said, well, maybe you're depressed. And I was like, no, I'm not. Were you sober? Yes. Isn't it funny how we don't want to admit that we have mental illness when we have a mental illness? Yeah, totally. Well, I have this mental illness, but not that one. Yeah, yeah, totally. It's weird kind of a pride. Well, I think it's because we're like struggle hounds, right? We're like, oh, I can struggle all day, and so when we're struggling, it's like, oh, no, I got this. Fuck, I babysat 6 kids after I drank 1.5 liters of wine the day before, this is nothing. I got this. But, it doesn't really occur to us that, most people don't actually live in that level of struggle. No. Like in constant hangovers or constant, depression or anxiety or fear or whatever, So we're just kind of used to it. We think we got to carry that, constant on our back. State of some kind of crisis or something like that. Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like this shedding of all those ideas, all this baggage and heaviness, And I'm really, a lot of people have had bad experience with pharmaceuticals, but I'm waving the pharma flag for now, for me. It changed my life. Do you have that thing where it brings you're stabilized as far as mood goes, but you still will get depressed a few times a year kind of a thing?
I don't know. This is my first year.
Okay, it's fairly new.
Yeah, so I don't really know yet. I do know that when the darkness hit, it got much, much worse. Like I was fine. I was cruising along, like just no problem.
While on the medication.
Yeah, while on the medication, and then the darkness hit, and it was like everything got taken away. Like the filter changed immediately. And you know what's weird is that it's like the frog in the pot, like the boiling water in the frog. Like not even a year ago, I was like, no, I'm not depressed. I don't need to, take drugs for this. Surely it must be something else. And now it it came on me. And like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I can't live like this. I'm not going to live like this. And I lived like this for years. Like maybe my whole life.
Now you have a reference point. You know what relief, or not even relief, but what stability feels like.
Well, and that's a real tie-in with sobriety too. It's like you put it down, and it's the first bumpy ride for the first little while, but after that, it's like, wow, I know what it is to be calm. I know what it is to, like, I sometimes get as much enjoyment, out of like a cup of coffee in the morning as I did about like a bottle of wine and a line of blow. It's like I get so much joy now, and I just didn't know that. I
get joy and some kind of endorphin rush, no shit, off of conversations like this.
Yeah.
Because the connection, one-on-one, again, I don't like groups, but if it's one-on-one with someone who I just jive with, that's my thing now.
Yeah.
And comedy, and sex.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always have to be those two, right? But
yeah.
If you can inject comedy into the sex with the really good relation,
that's the golden ticket right there. That's the full meal deal.
What's performing life like these days?
I have a rock band.
Oh, neat.
I'm like a middle-aged rock lady now. I fucking love my band. We're called Cass King and the Next Right Thing, and we do a kind of like soul influenced garage rock. So it's got a lot of soul style vocals with, and we all sing. There's 4 of us and we all sing, even the drummer. And it has a really driving kind of forward beat and lots of big power chords, and is danceable. Like that's really interesting. Having been a comedian, a musical comedian for so long, is that now that, and it's still with my partner John. I haven't mentioned the Wet Spots yet, have I?
Yeah, at the beginning.
At the beginning. Okay, so we toured forever as a musical comedy duo, and we were very like kind of twee. Like we just were like the friendly, nice people, like friendly, nice lounge singers talking about butt sex. And, that was really, really fun. And making people laugh was incredible. But mostly people are sitting down, and mostly people are kind of thinking.
You have to listen to it in order for the effect.
Yeah, you totally do.
Yeah.
We were no good as like an atmosphere act. It fell flat. But to do a rock band, it's like you get dancing ovations, right? Like if somebody actually, in Vancouver, if somebody actually gets their ass out of their chair and dances, that's gold. That's gold. And like having a dance floor full of people, that are really kind of tripping out. It's wild. And honestly, the rush of being able to explode all of my feelings all over the stage, like really just like primal scream, like howl, and like just rock star, like thrash and dance and express, and it turns out that I really like to do that loudly too. Really scream, cry, wail. And it's liberating. And people come up to me afterwards and tell me that it was liberating for them. So that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. We still do Wet Spots once in a while. And I perform with a quartet of women. We do a cappella soul music. So, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, contemporary people like Laura Mvula, Cyndi Lauper, stuff like that. We make Bee Gees. And we do it in 4-part harmony a cappella. Yeah, and we're called What It Is.
What It Is.
What It Is. Like, what it is.
Neat.
Like,
Neat.
how's it going?
Yeah, what it is. Well, kind of covered an hour. I think that's pretty good. I don't want to keep you much longer. One of the things I like to ask every guest that I have, some people don't like this question, but I don't care. For the average person listening to this, because a lot of people who are listening to this are just average people.
No, they're not, Mark. They're fucking weirdos.
Hear that? Told ya, everybody. But some of the stuff we might have talked about, they might not have much familiarity with. But and some of the stuff about you or perform anything, what would you like the average person to know? What closing words would you have for the average person listening?
If you have love in your heart and you're a kind person, you can pretty much do anything.
Fuck yeah. Where can they catch you performing? I don't know when this will be released, but anyway, when are you performing next?
On January the 6th, the band is performing at the Bowie Ball at the Rickshaw. So we'll be doing some awesome Bowie tunes. Just 3 of them, but we get to do Space Oddity, Modern Love, and Rebel Rebel, which we mash up with Dancing in the Street.
And that's Cass King and the Next Right Thing?
Yes.
Excellent. January 3rd?
6th. I think it is. If you look up Bowie Ball on Facebook.
Bowie Ball on Facebook. Excellent. Well, thanks for joining me, Cass.
My pleasure.
Good
Thanks
to catch
for
up
having
as
me.
Always.
Yeah.